Hi, I'm Lisa Von Drasek from the University of Minnesota Libraries, the Archives and Special Collections, and I am the children's librarian. But today, we're going to be talking about books that we love to give as gifts for the holiday season. With us today is
Jan Fransen, and I am the service lead for Researcher Information and Discovery Systems.
Okay, we're going to interrupt. What is that?
What is that? That means that I work with people around the university, our faculty and our students, all of our users, with our discovery systems, meaning the interface to the catalog, and also with researcher information systems, which is information about what our researchers at the University of Minnesota, primarily what they have published, what their research outputs are, and how they can create a presence for themselves that creates the best possible view of what their research work is for the public.
Oh, thank you. And?
I'm Arvid Nelsen. Hi. I am the curator, librarian, archivist at the Charles Babbage Institute, which is a center for the history of information technology.
So if I came to you and asked for materials from your collection, what are the kinds of things you would have?
We have a variety of books and archival collections, corporate papers, personal papers, talking about the history of computing from the perspectives of the people that created them, marketed, sold them, but increasingly also how they've been used and incorporated by different communities.
Oh, thank you. So what did you bring me today?
Well, I brought you a book called Diamond Age, and the subtitle is A Young Lady's Illustrated Primer. And it's actually from 1995. It's kind of an old book, but it's about a topic that continues to be really current. It's nanotechnology is the basis of it. It's a cyberpunk sort of sci-fi type book in the not too distant future. And the reason I chose this for gift giving is because I have two kids. They are not little kids anymore. They are 18 and 21. And I was kind of looking for something that maybe would interest both of them. One of them is a high school senior, probably going into engineering, plays a lot of video games. I kind of wanted a book that talked more about video gaming. And I didn't really find what I wanted there. And my daughter's an actress. She's in her senior year of college and is a theater major. And I wanted something for her that talked a little bit about the craft of acting. And what I liked about this book is that it does a little bit of both. So the premise of the book is that there's a young girl, and she gets through a series of mishaps, a book that wasn't really intended for her, but is intended for girls her age. It's a book that's interactive. She opens it up. She sees a character who looks a lot like herself, maybe a little bit older version of herself, and that character is the star of various stories, and they're stories that are based on, Grimm's fairy tales types of things, folklore and stories from throughout time, but they're stories about her, and as she grows, those stories grow too and get deeper, and she learns more about the world through this book. And the second part of that, she to me is the most riveting character of the novel, of a lot of different characters. And the other one is someone who's on the other side of the book, Miranda, who's an actor, or actually, in the context of this novel, a ractor, who acts in something called ractives, which are interactive media experiences. So the person on the other end, maybe a bunch of viewers in different places, are watching the action happen. In this case, it's the action in the book. And she is in a room by herself acting it out with other actors who are in other rooms by themselves. And their physical appearance is whatever is on the screen, but their movements and so on are based on what they're actually doing in the room.
If someone was a person who likes science fiction and fantasy, is there another book or series you would compare this to? If you like this, you would also like this series?
I'd almost always go back to this author, Neal Stephenson. My favorite of his books is called Snow Crash, and there's a little bit of a tie, in fact, between these two books. Snow Crash actually features a librarian. Well, not features. There's a librarian in the story. And it's also written in, I believe, the very early 90s. But it creates a world that, if you remember Second Life, it's like Second Life, where you can kind of goggle into this universe and be part of this interactive universe. So it's a little bit of a read-alike in that way, but it's the same author.
Arvid, that really reminded me of one of the books that you brought today, the Second Life Gaming, being someone else,
Yes.
trying on different personas. Can you talk about, you have a book with you today?
I do. I actually brought 2 books from CBI's Social Issues in Computing collection, which really tries to look at how different communities have interacted with computing. I chose books that tries to bring computing, the history of computing, to people's real everyday experiences. There are a lot of great books out there about the designers, the inventors, the creators, sort of the great individuals of computing, but people think that that's where the story of computing stops, and I think that's just where it starts. And we get more about how people are actually interacting with it. So one story that I think is really interesting is Being Emily. This is a young adult novel by a Minnesota author named Rachel Gold. And in this story, Emily is a transgender girl who's born Christopher. And it's the story of her experience of coming out in a small town in Minnesota, coming out to her family, getting adjusted. But what was interesting to me for the Babbage Institute collection is that online interactive video gaming communities provide an opportunity for Emily and other people in her peer group to explore gender identity and interact with individuals in being able to have people respond to her as female. So I just thought that was a really interesting take on it. And then it also just turned out to be a really, I think, touching story about a heroic
So a
young
great
woman.
YA read for 12 and up?
Exactly.
Great. And I saw another one on your pile that was also young adult.
I'm not sure which one you're
Oh,
referring
well,
to.
all right. Why don't you share this one, because all
okay.
of us are very excited about it.
All right. Well, I suppose it would be young adult, but I think it's also for the youthful older person as well.
Right. So this is your basic crossover. Anyone over 12 would enjoy this
Absolutely.
story history. The title is?
It's The Thrilling Adventures of Lovelace and Babbage, the mostly true story of the first computer. So nothing says the holiday season to me like the Victorian era. And so this is essentially a steampunk graphic novel about the origins of computing in the 19th century.
And this is a new book?
It's a new book. It came out in 2015 by Sydney Padua. She is a computer graphics designer for Hollywood films who got into cartooning. And someone encouraged her to explore the history of Ada Lovelace for Ada
So is
Lovelace
this her
Day.
first book too?
I
Or
believe
trade
it is. She started this as an online web comic, and then it turned into a book. And for those of you who might be turned off by the idea of simply a graphic novel, this is probably the most text-heavy graphic novel I've ever seen.
Can you open up and show us the
Yeah,
inside?
absolutely. Well, there's wonderful graphics that you would expect to see.
Multiverse.
The multiverse.
Already I'm interested.
So she tells the story, the real story of Ada Lovelace, who was the daughter of Lord Byron, and Charles Babbage, who was the inventor of the first computer, in a graphic form, but every page has multiple footnotes. The footnotes have extensive endnotes, and many of the endnotes have their own extensive footnotes. So you can read it any way you want. You don't have to get bogged down and read it like a scholarly text and disrupt your narrative flow with the graphic novel in order to read the footnotes. You can actually read the footnotes themselves. They're really educational, but they're not boring. They're really funny, and it just makes an excellent read. So Ada Lovelace's tutor, William Friend, is apparently a very conservative mathematician who doesn't believe in imaginary numbers. So a footnote pertaining to him says, "Certainty, not uncertainty," is quoted from one of Ada's tutors, William Friend. "I had to double-check that 3 times before I could believe he had written something so perfectly in character. Friend was a mathematician so conservative he didn't believe in negative numbers. Don't even get him started on imaginary numbers." So,
That's great.
but
That's
it's
great.
wonderful. So after the original story, the real story of the first computer, which sadly ends with Babbage not being able to successfully complete it, and Ada died, unfortunately, at the age of 36. So she decided that what she should do is explore an alternate universe in which they were able to complete the machine and engage in adventures. So they use it to fight crime.
So we
and,
move into a fantasy element.
Exactly, which is really fun, but at the same time, there are still wonderful footnotes that talk about history and the characters, the biographical lives and the historical events in the 19th century. So you still get to go on this fun imaginary adventure, but there are still opportunities for learning.
So this is a book. Star Wars is all over the news, and I've been thinking a lot about books that I'm giving. One is Syllabus, and this is by the cartoonist, Lynda Berry, and it's an inspiring volume of how to release your own creativity. And then, as you know, coloring books are very hip and hot now, and I'm loving Star Wars Doodles, because if I'm going to wait in line for 3 days for tickets to Star Wars, this will give us something to do. But I'm also thinking about what I want for the holiday season, and you've given me some ideas. Arvid, what are you thinking about? What would you love to receive?
Oh, gosh. Whenever in doubt, I always return to Iris Murdoch. She's my favorite novelist. But I think I actually want the Neal Stephenson novel that we saw today.
And?
Well, of course, after hearing about and seeing some of the pictures and hearing a footnote, I definitely want to read this one next.
Well, thank you for being here, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.